This is the show's new co-host now. You cannot stop me. Actually, now that I think about it, I think he'd be a good choice for defense secretary. I mean, who do you think should be the next defense secretary? I think it should be this Bigfoot. It'd be better than James Mattis. Although, to be fair, basically anyone who isn't named Donald Rumsfeld would be better than James Mattis. Anyway, hello and welcome to the Christmas Eve edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, a very, very jolly Ephrom Josine, who apparently is going to have to do 20 minutes worth of news because it seems like Donald gave me a Christmas gift of being as insane as possible over the weekend. Let's start with this fact. The stock market went down over the Christmas season. This is something that almost never happens, including losing 3% of its worth in the course of just 2 hours. But wait, I thought the stock market was the proof that Donald Trump was making America great again. Now none of the networks are covering it. CNBC even got numbers from Goldman Sachs to prove it was good. Remember when people like me were pointing out that when the Trump economy starts and the stock market tanks? Remember how we were made fun of by right-wing media for that? Well, turns out we were right because the stock market has been doing some of its worst throughout U.S. history, including several historical plunges. And this is just after Donald Trump announced himself Tariff Man and bragged about over a dozen hits less than 3 months ago. Treasury Secretary and former hedge fund manager, including also one of the big recipients of the 2008 bailouts, Steve Mnuchin, sent calls to many top banks saying that the stock market was not going to go down. Rumor has it he also was saying that from a burning room, just simply informing them that this is in fact fine. Although, if everything's going fine like Steve Mnuchin says, then that means they won't need bailed out like the banks or GM did. However, Steve Mnuchin's also a complete idiot, so... And also, this is what CNBC blamed for the crash. The fact that someone said everything was going fine? If Steve Mnuchin said everything was going bad, would that make the market go up? I mean, I hate Steve Mnuchin too, but I didn't realize the market also hated Steve Mnuchin and therefore based off all of its actions off of spiting Steve Mnuchin. And this is also after major stock buybacks, which for the record is what they used those tax cuts for. The tax cuts that, might I add, have only given you a 0.1% wealth increase once adjusted for inflation. Not only that, but the U.S. government has also shut down over Christmas over Donald Trump's wall. This, for that matter, also means that tons of Border Patrol employees are forced to work over Christmas without pay, the very thing Donald Trump cares so much about, he is not actually giving money towards. And mind you, he has never reclassified border security as non-essential in the first place. Because otherwise, they would be getting paid. But Congress and the president, they're all still getting money. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even called this out. I just cannot believe this at this point. Just at some point, you have to look at all of your... This is a direct message to the president. At some point, you have to look at the one constant thing in all of your failures, you, and realize something is going on. Let's also go over the other bad thing, because there is some good news today, even from an unlikely source. But the criminal justice reform bill the president is trying to push through, the First Step Act, is a complete scam only affecting 10% of federal prisoners. So all that praising people like Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk have been doing, saying this will stop the overcrowded prisons and fix the black community's prison problem. Turns out, unless you believe that the people who commit 50% of the crimes are also only 10% of the prisoners, you're just delusional or bad at math, although that's what I expect from Charlie Kirk. But here's the good news. Donald Trump has finally legalized hemp, and it's actually going to be legal the first of this year, or next year, my bad. That is amazing. There's no nice way to put it. That is just amazing. I am beyond pleasantly surprised by this. Now, mind you, that's roughly 2 good things the entire presidency, but still, that will actually be a big boost to the U.S. economy, considering how much hemp can do. It can be used for medication, for fuel, for clothes, and for much more. And Jefferson actually told us to use it a lot. So, okay, that's really good. But the best thing Donald could do is he actually pulled half the troops out of Afghanistan. He's taken out 7 of the 14,000 troops and is leaving another 7,000 there to stay. To be clear, it's the same 7,000 that was there before. He's not adding another 7,000, in case I worded that weirdly. Which, pulling out half is still really good, I'll say that. Just, wow. Of course, this and the Syria withdrawal have caused controversy, most notably on Congressman-elect Dan Crenshaw, who got very angry at Saturday Night Live for making fun of his eye patch, despite the fact he does in fact have an eye patch. I know, he got it because he served in a war and all that. But he still has an eye patch, and that is still kind of funny. Anyway, he said in a withdrawal quote, "We go there so they don't come here." To which my response is, they set the line! Finally! Because it was such a solid excuse when Bush used it. Let's go over this fact. The fact is, Muslim extremists typically can't make it to the U.S. because that involves doing things like, well, I don't know, crossing a giant ocean. And the fact also is that many Iraqis only join al-Shabaab's backlash against the U.S. because of the U.S. overthrowing Saddam Hussein. You know, a war that Crenshaw also supported. And for that matter, ISIS only got anywhere because the leader was a former general to Saddam Hussein. Because, I don't know if you noticed, Dan, but Muslim extremists typically aren't very smart. Sorry, Dan, I don't know if you knew that, but typically Muslim extremists don't know how to do terrorist attacks unless they have qualified generals. That's one of the reasons why Osama bin Laden needed U.S. training to get anywhere. But anyway, I'd like to end with this. Remember when Donald Trump said he would take credit for the shutdown? Well, apparently, he now says, quote, Democrats now own the shutdown and vows it will, quote, last for a very long time. And mind you, a resolution was passed by the House and the Senate that he could have signed, but it didn't include funding for his special wall. I'm Ephrom, and good night. This story is truly sad.